Cleveland is in full meltdown mode after a humiliating 41-10 beatdown by the Ravens. TV ratings collapsed. Fans flooded social media demanding one thing: bench the vets and start Shedeur Sanders now. The Browns haven't just lost a game. They may have lost the locker room and the fan base in one night.
Did you make of the response and the levee breaking here in the second half?
Well, what the Ravens did, they took advantage of some short fields, because for the first 2.5 quarters of this game, Cleveland's defense looked like Cleveland's defense from week 1, looked like Cleveland's defense really the better part of the last 2-3 years under Jim Schwartz, because they were scoring from 24 out, 51 yards out, and then 5 yards out. So Lamar Jackson and that offense didn't have to do too much. And then they started to pour it on. But the one guy that I would highlight is DeAndre Hopkins, who I think
But I thought the guys did a really nice job of Shedeur and operating, the guys making plays. So, again, a ton to teach.
Talking about a very different game. Instead, a couple plays bounced the Ravens' way, and suddenly you're double digits up, and now the floodgates open.
Cleveland's run defense has been pretty good. They held, for whatever it's worth, Chase Brown to like 2 yards per carry last week, right? And then this week, Derrick Henry, 11 carries for 23 with the fumble, as you mentioned.
Grant Delpit ends up not looking ridiculous after saying Derrick Henry's not that hard to tackle.
He's not. Everyone else was, apparently. But really, it was Tez Walker who they couldn't cover. 2 touchdowns.
The Cleveland Browns just got absolutely massacred 41-10 by the Ravens, and the aftermath is even more brutal than the game itself. Viewership numbers are crashing as fans are walking away in disgust. And now there's a growing chorus demanding something nobody saw coming: Shedeur Sanders to Cleveland. But here's what the media isn't telling you about this humiliating defeat that has Browns fans questioning everything they believed about their team. The Ravens didn't just win this game. They systematically destroyed Cleveland's defense in a way that exposed 3 years of fundamental failures under Jim Schwartz. And when you hear what Browns players said before this game that gave Baltimore all the bulletin board material they needed, you'll understand why this wasn't just a loss. It was a complete organizational meltdown that has fans calling for a total rebuild around college football's most exciting quarterback.
You don't want to give this team bulletin board material, and that's what they gave them today, saying Derrick Henry was an easy tackle, and nothing that the Baltimore secondary was going to do. Jared Judon, speaking of, was going to do to hurt them as a receiver core. We needed to see this game for the Baltimore Ravens. They started out a little slow in the first half, because we all know what the Browns defense presents to the Baltimore Ravens. They know each other very well, but in the second quarter, they put it on them. And the quiet thing about it is Derrick Henry didn't even have a big day. 11 yards, 11 rushes, 23 yards, and they still found a way to put up 41 points.
41 to the Jets, a bad team just yet. This was a bad.
Look, I've been covering the NFL for years, and I've seen some ugly games. But what happened Sunday wasn't just ugly. It was a complete systematic breakdown that revealed everything wrong with the Cleveland Browns organization. And the most shocking part? This might actually be the catalyst that finally brings Shedeur Sanders to the NFL sooner than anyone expected. Let me break down exactly what went down, because the box score doesn't even tell half the story of this disaster. The Ravens came into this game angry. They had just blown a lead against Buffalo in Week 1. And everyone was questioning whether Lamar Jackson could still perform in big moments. Baltimore needed what analysts are calling a get-right moment, and unfortunately for Cleveland, they became the perfect punching bag.
His offense, not nearly as gaudy as last week, had some short fields. Nate Wiggins with an interception that he returned back inside the 5. You mentioned the block punt, so it had some short fields. So Lamar ends up with the 4 touchdowns. But I think Cleveland's defense overall did a pretty nice job. Myles Garrett, did he have 1 or 2 sacks? Again, he at least one, really. 1.5 per the NFL. So that's 2 times he tackled Lamar Jackson at quarterback. But then defensive player of the week.
But here's where it gets interesting, and why Shedeur Sanders suddenly becomes relevant to this conversation. The Browns' offensive struggles weren't just about one bad day. They were the culmination of years of poor quarterback development and offensive philosophy that has left this franchise in quarterback purgatory. Now, you want to know what really set Baltimore off? Before this game, Browns players were running their mouths in ways that would make any coach cringe. They were saying Derrick Henry was an easy tackle. Easy tackle. Can you believe that? They were claiming Baltimore's secondary wasn't going to do anything to hurt them as a receiver core. This is the kind of bulletin board material that championship teams dream about, and Baltimore made them pay for every single word. The Ravens defense had their own statement to make. They forced turnovers all game long and even scored a defensive touchdown, their first since 2020. When a defense that hasn't scored in 4 years suddenly finds the end zone against you, that's not just a bad day. That's a complete organizational failure. But let's talk about what really has Browns fans hitting the panic button. Cleveland's defense, under Jim Schwartz, has looked exactly the same for the better part of 2 to 3 years. The same holes, the same missed assignments, the same inability to make crucial stops when it matters. And on Sunday, those weaknesses were exposed in the most brutal way possible. The Ravens were scoring from everywhere. 24 yards out, another 24 yards out, 51 yards out, then 5 yards out. Baltimore didn't even need long drives. They were getting short fields and capitalizing on every single opportunity that Cleveland's mistakes gave them. Here's what's really crazy. Derrick Henry, the guy they said was an easy tackle, didn't even have a big statistical day. 11 rushes for just 23 yards. And the Ravens still put up 41 points. When a team can shut down your easy tackle, running back, and still hang 41 on you, that tells you everything about how broken your defensive system really is. Now, this is where the Shedeur Sanders conversation gets really interesting, and why Browns fans are starting to dream about a complete organizational reset. Sanders isn't just any college quarterback. He's the son of a legend, coached by Deion Sanders at Colorado, and he's showing the kind of leadership, accuracy, and football IQ that NFL scouts are absolutely drooling over. But more importantly, he represents something the Browns haven't had in decades: hope. Think about it. Cleveland has been stuck in this cycle of mediocrity for years. They bring in veteran quarterbacks who are past their prime, they draft projects who never develop, and they keep running the same offensive systems that produce the same disappointing results. But Shedeur Sanders? This kid is different. He's not just talented, he's mentally tough in ways that most college quarterbacks never develop. Playing for his father at Colorado, dealing with all the pressure and expectations that come with the Sanders name, and still performing at an elite level, that's the kind of mental makeup that translates to NFL success. And here's the twist. That Browns fans are starting to realize this humiliating loss to Baltimore might actually be the best thing that could happen to their franchise's future. Why? Because it's forcing ownership to confront some uncomfortable truths about where this team is headed. You can't keep putting band-aids on fundamental problems and expect different results. The defensive issues under Jim Schwartz aren't getting better, they're getting worse. The offensive philosophy isn't evolving with the modern NFL. Sometimes you need to get completely broken down before you can rebuild the right way. And if Cleveland is going to rebuild, why not do it around the most exciting quarterback prospect we've seen in years? But let's get back to just how bad Sunday really was, because Browns fans deserve to understand the full scope of this disaster. The Baltimore's offense looked stagnant for most of the first half. Lamar Jackson wasn't having his best day, and the Ravens were playing somewhat conservatively. But even when Baltimore wasn't at their best, Cleveland couldn't capitalize. That's the mark of a team that's fundamentally broken. Then, in the second half, the levee completely broke. The Ravens started pouring it on, and Cleveland had no answers. None. The defense that was supposed to be their strength looked like they were playing in slow motion. Communication breakdowns, missed tackles, blown coverages. It was a clinic in how not to play NFL defense. And the most frustrating part for Browns fans? This wasn't some fluke performance against an unstoppable offense. The Ravens were getting short fields because of Cleveland's mistakes, and they were just efficient enough to capitalize. DeAndre Hopkins, who many people thought was washed up when he signed with Baltimore, was making crucial plays when his number was called. Just 2 targets, 2 catches, and a touchdown. But those plays came at exactly the right moments to break Cleveland's back. Here's what really has analysts talking though. The way Baltimore won this game shows they're a legitimate contender when they're clicking on all cylinders. Their defense stepped up in a major way, forcing the turnovers they need to give their offense short fields. Their running game, even without big numbers from Derrick Henry, was effective enough to control the clock and wear down Cleveland's defense. But for Cleveland, this performance raises serious questions about their ceiling. If you can't compete with a Ravens team that wasn't even at their best, what does that say about your chances against elite competition? This is exactly why the Shedeur Sanders conversation is gaining momentum. Browns fans are tired of being told to be patient, tired of watching the same mistakes year after year, tired of hoping that minor adjustments will somehow lead to major improvements. Sanders represents a complete reset, a chance to build an offense around a young, dynamic quarterback who already understands how to handle pressure and expectations. A quarterback who has the arm talent to make every throw, but also the intelligence to process defenses and make quick decisions. And let's be honest, the entertainment factor alone would transform this franchise. Browns fans haven't had a truly exciting quarterback since Bernie Kosar. They've had game managers, they've had veterans on their last legs, they've had projects who never developed. But they haven't had a quarterback who makes you excited to turn on the TV every Sunday. Shedeur Sanders would change that immediately. Now, I know what some of you are thinking. He's still in college. He hasn't proven himself against NFL competition. And you're right, there are always risks when you're projecting college success to the NFL level. But here's what we do know about Sanders. That should have Browns fans excited. He's incredibly accurate, especially in the short and intermediate passing game, where modern NFL offenses live. He's shown the ability to extend plays with his mobility without relying on it as a crutch. Most importantly, he's demonstrated leadership qualities that you simply can't teach. Playing for Deion Sanders at Colorado, dealing with all the media attention and pressure that comes with that situation, and still performing at an elite level shows a mental toughness that most quarterbacks never develop. Even in the NFL, the Browns need that kind of leadership desperately. They need someone who can walk into the huddle and command respect not just because of his talent, but because of his presence and his football IQ. But here's the really interesting part of this whole situation. The worse Cleveland looks this season, the better their draft position becomes. And if they're picking high enough to have a shot at Shedeur Sanders, they might finally have the chance to get their franchise quarterback of the future. Of course, there's the question of whether Sanders will declare for the draft or stay in college another year. But if I'm a Browns fan watching performances like Sunday's Massacre, I'm hoping my team gets bad enough to have that option. Because let's be real, what's the alternative? More years of the same defensive struggles under Jim Schwartz? More years of offensive mediocrity? More years of hoping that small adjustments will somehow lead to big improvements? Sometimes the best thing that can happen to a franchise is a complete wake-up call. And getting demolished 41-10 by a Ravens team that wasn't even playing their best football? That's exactly the kind of wake-up call that forces organizations to make the hard decisions they've been avoiding. The Ravens showed Cleveland what a competent organization looks like. They came in with a game plan, they executed when it mattered, and they took advantage of every opportunity their opponent gave them. That's championship-level football. Cleveland showed everyone what organizational dysfunction looks like. Poor preparation, mental mistakes, and an inability to adjust when things start going wrong. Browns fans deserve better than this. They deserve a quarterback who can make the throws that change games. They deserve an organization that learns from its mistakes instead of repeating them year after year. And maybe, just maybe, this humiliating loss is the catalyst that finally brings Shedeur Sanders to Cleveland and gives this fan base the hope they've been waiting for. What do you think? Is it time for Cleveland to completely blow it up and rebuild around Shedeur Sanders? Or should they keep trying to fix the same broken system that gave us Sunday's disaster? Let me know in the comments. And don't forget to subscribe for more brutal NFL reality checks like this one.